I'm resident of Calder for YouTube. Joel Sainz, it's Buddy Gordon Demoscus with Alan Glant. Patrick will join us later. We're here to discuss episode 4 of I, Claudius. Some murder goes down in this. Augustus dies by the end of this one, so no more Brian Blessed. Um, craziness.
Those darn poison figs.
Yeah. Well,
Yep, don't touch other people's figs, ladies and gentlemen.
No.
I like how the episode, he's talking about gardening and stuff, and she's inquiring about him leaving and stuff, and it's like, oh, I just need to go and take care of those matters, I want to go, and obviously, this is after Claudius has had a conversation with the blonde-haired gentleman who he tells him what's going on, certain things that are going on. And it's an interesting episode. What did you guys think of this?
Well, I thought it was ironic that he had that Claudius had a real conversation with his grandfather just before he got sick and died, of course, in the garden as well. There was a couple of key scenes that happened in the garden in this episode. And in that scene, you get the idea that, Caesar Augustus is changing his mind. He's not going to favor Tiberius anymore. He's going to, he's confiding in Claudius for the first time, a lot of rather vital information, I think, and does not, that's the irony of it. He does not consider him a moron anymore. He considers him a friend, and unfortunately, that alliance does Claudius no good because, except for the information that he gets from Augustus, I think that does him some good. But otherwise, it's a truncated alliance because it ends pretty quickly thereafter.
Well, I also think it's a good counterpoint to the first scene where Claudius is speaking with, I think his name is Germanicus, where he's revealing all this stuff that I think kind of gets played out, because then it's, we see that, okay, Posthumus is Augustus sees Posthumus, who's like, hey, you didn't bother seeing me for 4 years. I'm innocent of what I was accused of. You've got the scene where Augustus.
I think we got you frozen there, Gordon.
Oh, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah, you're a little. The video's a little sketchy, but I can hear you.
Okay, well, let me. I'm gonna turn off my camera and I'll move into my living room. So, in the early days, we
just got a lost connection there, I think. You still there, Jules?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so let me move into my living room.
What's going on here? No, I'm doing.
I blame Jewel.
I'm strong on this end.
Okay, so yeah, I just disturbed the cat. So okay, can you see and hear me now?
Yes.
In fact, why don't I turn on the overhead light? Hello, folks. Welcome to my lovely home. Okay, so you've got that. You've got the scene where Augustus pretty much, and Livia hears him say something like, I never liked Tiberius. I'm going to put Posthumus in as emperor. So you've got the setup where it looks like there's going to be these lovely reversals, but then, kind of close to the end, you've got Augustus getting really sick, and he says, "Don't give me any food, not even anything touched by human hands." But he's been eating figs from the garden. So what does Livia do? Well, and this is historically accurate, Joel. She put poison on the figs, and that's how he dies. And then you see how, because Augustus actually changes his will to reflect Posthumus, but she somehow finds the original will, kind of destroys the hello.
Yeah, I'm here. Alan.
Okay, yeah, because we just lost Ellen.
Yeah, like, what happened?
Ladies and gentlemen, you're stuck with me and Joel. Okay, I know Patrick's on his way in, but I don't know what's happening with. I guess Alan is having tech issues. Ooh, Joel, I just saw a flash of you.
What's that?
But yeah, it's Roman history a go-go. And okay, well, yep. As you can see, we got Frankie here. Yeah, he's what did you think of Claudius episode 4? What? What's that? Okay, yeah. At the end, you get yes, Frankie. That is right. You see Patrick Stewart in a gray wig at the end of the episode, and he stabs people.
Yeah, Patrick Stewart gets to have a little fun in this episode, and he stabs some people. A much more darker character than what he usually plays. I mean, what he's going to end up playing.
Well, this was long before he played Jean-Luc Picard.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and so he's basically the enforcer, so to speak.
Yeah. He also not necessarily this episode, but more so in the episode, he becomes some sort. Even though he's still in the army, like the Roman army, he becomes an advisor in a lot of ways. He sort of advises Tiberius.
Yeah, he's kind of the I'm trying to think of the best way to describe him. It's like if the Roman army were the police, he'd be the commissioner.
Yeah, that's
it doesn't work quite that way in Roman times, but he's kind of their the head of their guard, for lack of a better term. And he's also he's very loyal. I mean, the fact that he sends people, and I don't know where Posthumus is exiled, but it seems awfully close, because it's like, they didn't have buses in ancient Rome, so it's like, especially if he's exiled, so they stab him, and Sejanus, Stewart's character, says, "Oh yeah, we're just going to bury him in the sea."
Yeah.
Alan, you're back.
I am. I'm on the phone now because for some reason I did end up losing my Wi-Fi connection on my computer, which is bizarre because I've still got it on my streaming service on my television. So I do not know what that's all about. But anyway, I'm on here, so I guess I'm good for now.
Frankie's joined us.
Mm-hmm.
So, what did you think of Patrick Stewart in this episode, Alan?
Sejanus, yes, nice to see him. He's sort of a murder prop in that particular episode. So he's yes, I'll do it, and off he goes and performs his function as an assassin basically in this episode. But it's interesting to see him with all that curly, funky Roman hair. He's quite young, of course. He's like 35 or 36, I guess, at this point in his career. So he's at this point he's died in the Royal RSC guy. He ends up alongside several other well-known now British actors on John Barton's Shakespeare series, which was like a 10-part series. We ended up getting that in grad school. I think David Suchet was part of that group, and several other people as well. Judi Dench, and they're all so young because it was in 1982 when they did the series for the RSC. But they were all very much deeply involved in that. And what can you say? It's Patrick Stewart. He's got the voice, he's got the look, the whole 9 yards. So it's pretty cool to see him.
Yeah, and just to put it in perspective, Joel, this is not only pre-Star Trek, this is pre-Dune and pre-Life Force.
Yeah. Pre everything except a lot of stage work and some British television.
Right.
That's it.
like when you that's the interesting part about like actors who go on to become famous because like yeah, I first saw Patrick Stewart in Star Trek: The Next Generation too, but like when I saw him in Dune and stuff like that, I'm thinking, wait, that's the guy from Star Trek. What's he like? Like it's like so. Um, my mom's friend was the person who showed me the movie Dune, the original Dune. It was great movie. Uh, but yeah, it's always fun to go back and see like how many people, famous people, were in something before they made it as big stars. You know?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these people have been doing stage work since the 1960s. Some of them since the 1950s before they achieved any sort of television fame, first in England and then, internationally.
Yeah, and a lot of time, at least at the time in England, the way that kind of the acting industry was set up is that you could go from doing Shakespeare to doing, say, a BBC show to maybe doing a small independent play. And there wasn't that idea, except at this point in the States, you had like your hierarchy where you had like soap opera actors were at the bottom, then you had TV actors, then character actors, movie stars, and then stage actors were kind of at the very top. So there wasn't very much interplay, and the perception in America was like if you're a soap opera actor, you really didn't do all that much. You just said your lines and went home. Like we know that's different because
Right.
with Dark Shadows, especially because they were theater trained, they knew when to hit their mark, how to hit their line. And in a lot of British drama, especially at this point, when you're doing Shakespeare, you have to memorize a ton of line. You're going just straight off the text, and you're finding your way into the character that way. And so it's when you look at early stuff that people do, especially on the British side, you can see where they have that training. I mean, Brian Blessed's first series in England was a show called Z Cars, which is a cop show. And I think his character name was like Fancy Smith or something like that.
That sounds great.
Yep, and I'm warning you, Jewel, do not badmouth Brian Blessed. I know you like to talk smack about him, but don't you dare.
What are we talking smack about?
Well, I was revealing that Brian Blessed's first role, he came to prominence in a British show called Z Cars, which is a cop show. And his character name, I believe, was PC Fancy Smith.
Okay.
And I know that Jewel has been kind of trash talking Brian Blessed, so I was just warning him not to do that.
Oh no.
And since he's cloaked in mystery tonight,
why do you hate Brian Blessed, Jewel?
God. Oh, I don't. I don't know enough about him, so I don't. So.
That's okay. So how's the episode coming?
Good.
That's good. Well, it's been nice visiting you boys.
That's right. We basically just talked about Patrick Stewart as Sejanus and seeing him. And what an introduction, huh?
The subject of a play by Ben Jonson. Ben Jonson, one of Shakespeare's contemporaries, wrote a Sejanus play, which I've never read. I'm not sure anyone has. I'm not sure Ben Jonson read it. He just had ChatGPT.
No, he wrote it and just said, "Don't let me look at it again."
Yeah.
Gave it to some pageant master or something.
Emphasis on the latter two syllables. So, Janus Films, the J is silent. So anyway, well, yeah, Sejanus is one of the great villains of television, and really, if it's too bad that Gene Roddenberry was such a tough sell on Patrick Stewart as Captain Picard, although I would have preferred to have seen Mitch Ryan or Yaphet Kotto, who were both up for the part.
They were, that's right.
And Stephen Macht who was in Galaxina. But if he's the hero of Galaxina. Although again, it should have been Avery Schreiber reading for Picard. Avery Schreiber's RoboCop would have been good. Anyway, so what I was going to say is that really all they needed to do was show Gene one of these Sejanus episodes and say, "Is that ruthless enough?"
Yeah, really, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, really, really, really is. So, Joel, what'd you make of him?
Very, very young Patrick Stewart, but a good performance.
the master of damning with faint praise. He was young and he put in a good performance.
And
relatively young anyway.
Yeah, but Joel, I think you're giving, dismissing it as a young Patrick Stewart. It's like the whole point for any actor is you're evaluating the role, not the person in it. I think Stewart does because he's brutal, he's cold, he's clinical, he's brutal. And we'll find that out in later episodes. But it is very hard to play that kind of coldness and efficiency without coming across as like, to do it in a way that to me it's fascinating, it's watchable, and it's and it's not something that you would not necessarily see Patrick Stewart in. It's like My Dinner with Andre. I was so used to Wallace Shawn playing a different character, a certain kind of character in more recent films, so that seeing him originally playing a different character, it's a revelation. After this, this is as I explained before, Patrick came in pre-Dune and pre-Life Force, and this is a guy who, and those two roles are pretty much kind of your standard military guy. Those would be like the Patrick Stewart roles.
I'll tell you, if you want to see a really good study of Patrick Stewart, about 6 or 7 or 8 years after this, but still in the same era, look up Stewart Suchet, Suchet, playing Shakespeare. It's a TV series John Barton did.
Yes, you've
seen it. It's the Merchant of Venice one. Holy Christ!
Yeah. There's a lot of them in that. Ian McKellen is in several of the episodes.
Yeah,
I guess it's a 10-part series. We taught in grad school. We watched. I mean, I had a class on Shakespeare in grad school, and we just
John Barton. John Barton, in my directing lineage, is my artistic grandfather. He did stuff with Barry Kyle. They did a bunch of stuff together at the RSC. And so then Barry trained me. So,
very cool.
I'm a Bartonette.
Yes, a Bartonette.
And Joel, you could probably find rips on YouTube, because I saw it on DVD like years ago, and it's just it's easy to, especially when you see people on television acting, but when you're acting in Shakespeare, and there's also, between this and there's a show, I think a more recent one called Discovering Shakespeare.
Oh, I don't know that
one. They're on for a couple of series because it's like a joint U.S. American thing, and like the first 2 seasons are interesting, but like the third one, there's like Ethan Hawke talking about Hamlet.
Okay.
Because he did Hamlet, but the idea is for a lot of these actors with Shakespeare, because this is very early playwriting, there's no text, there's no kind of like, this is a character who does this, so they have to pull it from the text, and they have to create that. It's not the method acting of evoking an emotion, inner emotion onto the script. It's pulling it in. And I think in looking at all the performances, 2 things strike me. The first is that, at least for me, there's barely any background music, which is good because your focus is on the scene.
Yes.
Absolutely. And the other thing is that because these actors are so well trained, because it is not easy to get in a Royal Shakespeare Company. Believe me, I've tried.
Now, Gordon, we got 3 different layers of things. Are you talking about Claudius? Are you talking about playing Shakespeare or discovering Shakespeare?
Well, I'm talking I Claudius.
Okay, great. Yeah, okay, keep going.
Okay, but with I Claudius, you've got that kind of minimalism because because in playing other roles, including Shakespeare, you need that discipline to go in and do your part. And with Stewart here, he does a great job of playing a villain who doesn't do "ooh, I'm a villain" vibes.
No. He's actually what he does
doing
is
his damn job.
everything has a purpose. He's got a goal. He's got his motivation is set. He knows what he's doing. So he's not indicating his snidely whiplash.
He's doing his job, and that's what's scary about him.
One of the things I really like about the performance of Sejanus, and you see this is I think maybe more in the next episode, certainly, is that while maintaining his sense of, militaristic discipline, sort of, you can see just little edges of decadence start to creep in more and more. Well, especially with his plans for the daughter.
Right.
Wow, what a schmuck.
What a schmuck.
It really is. And it takes a John Rice Davies, I believe, to take down a Patrick Stewart. Because doesn't Davies play Macro who does him in? I think it is. Yeah, Joel, you get John Rice Davies coming up. You like him? He's Sala and Gimli. And
Professor Challenger.
And Professor Challenger. And he sort of plays a similar character in the Alan Quartermain movie, the
King Solomon's Mines.
King Solomon's Mines, yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, with Herbert Lom as this insane German, this bald, crazy German.
6 degrees of Herbert Lom.
God, I love that guy. I love him. I mean, great. You can connect him to Star Trek Discovery very easily, and thus the entire Star Trek universe. And then you jump from that to the Office, because you got Rainn Wilson, who was on Star Trek Discovery. You got David Cronenberg, who was on Star Trek Discovery. David Cronenberg directed the Night Shift, or whatever, the Dead Zone. Directed the Dead Zone with Herbert Lom.
Yes.
And then it's just one more leap to Turk Thrust.
It's true. It doesn't have to be a leap. It can be just a shuffle.
It can, or a strum.
That's right.
Well, Joel, you're very quiet in all of this. What are your thoughts?
I'm just listening. That's all.
You're grooving.
In the shadows.
Well, I secretly suspect that the reason why Joel's camera's off, even though he's claiming technical issues, is that he's really wearing assless chaps.
But that wouldn't matter, because, well, all chaps are that.
It's true. But he's not wearing anything under the chaps, I guess.
And the other thing is he sits. he sits, so we wouldn't know.
Well,
if he has to get up, we'll know, because we'll hear that sound. When
he does get up and check.
Touches,
all right.
Touches
he might be having his butt in front of the camera.
All right. This started as such a lofty enterprise once upon a time. From John Barton
to this,
to Jules kosher winker there. It's that's a thing.
Oh my God.
That's a thing.
Well, here's my question to you. Guys.
Alan, I'm so sorry.
Is there an actor who maybe
I got a bucket over here.
Is there an actor who maybe tried out for I Claudius but didn't make the cut? Like not the role, but the
Benny Hill.
Yeah. I think that's the one flaw of I Claudius. It should have had Benny Hill.
That's right.
Yeah.
Playing Augustus, so every time he had a tantrum, his eyebrows and keep going up and down.
Yeah. Well, what was interesting in the 2005 documentary I shared with you guys is that Brian Blessed didn't think he should play Augustus. He wanted to play Tiberius.
That's right.
But I think he is Augustus because, even though it might not be historically accurate, you need someone who's like this big, powerful, bold, so that when you see him die, especially when he dies at the end, you see that weakness start to creep in.
Yeah. You know, I tell you actors you would have liked to have seen in this. As one of the two historians, even though the guys were great, Desmond Llewellyn.
Mm-hmm.
I love that guy. Give that guy another part.
Yep.
Hated machines. He hated machines. He had no affinity for gadgets or machines
Yeah.
whatsoever, and died tragically, not of old age, but in a car accident.
You know, I wonder if George Coulouris was still around at
Tragically
this
and
time.
ironically.
Yeah. I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean,
George Coulouris, the only guy who did Doctor Who and Citizen Kane.
yeah, you're right.
That's an interesting connection. Yeah.
You're right. You know, speaking of Citizen Kane, I've often thought that David Selby's sort of acting ancestor was Joseph Cotten.
Yeah, I see that immediately.
And I refer occasionally to, in the daybook, to David Selby, Joseph Cottoning his way around the set. And he does, especially Jed Leland. You know, the real acerbic Jed Leland. I love that movie. Jules, have you seen that movie?
No.
You've never seen Citizen Kane?
Oh no, Citizen Kane I've seen. I thought you said something else.
That's a good movie.
Yeah.
Well,
I've seen
just
Citizen Kane. I've seen Touch of Evil. I've seen The Stranger. I've seen what is it?
The Third Man.
Third Man. Yeah.
And
F for Fake.
So I've seen, and I listened to the Orson Welles Shadow audio. So I mean, he's not my favorite voice actor for the Shadow, but he does a good job. I think his best performance comes at the Silent Avenger. That's, if you've ever listened to that episode, it's really great. I think that
Jewel, avoid the movies of Henry Jaglom. Whatever you do. It's the last filmmaker Orson worked with, and I don't think it would be a hit. I think Henry Jaglom is a dangerous comedy. Although his most successful movie stars Lisa Richards.
What's
Eating.
Eating. That's right.
Yeah, with Lisa Richards. When I interviewed Lisa Richards, which Wallace forced me to do it in a car without the engine running, with all the windows rolled up in late July.
Oh God.
On an iPad, because that's where the acoustics were best. And so, you know, good, dutiful, you know, his Jim Fowler, I would go and do it. And I actually destroyed the iPad. It overheated incredibly, and I was able to bring it back to life. But the rest of my Lisa Richards interview was conducted in the altogether in front of an open refrigerator with the iPad inside it, and my head stuck in the fridge, as well it should be.
There's things we do for love, as they say.
You know who I would like to see in this? Rowan Atkinson.
It would have been great. Now Rowan, it was maybe a teenager when they did this, because he was very early 20s or teenager, because this was about 10 years before Blackadder and what was the comedy thing that he did with Pamela Stevenson in the early 80s? It was like to deal with the news and stuff. Not the 9 o'clock news.
Yeah, not the 9 o'clock news.
Not the 9 o'clock news. Yeah. I mean, you know, England, it's kind of like the French in cooking. I mean, you know, the English just take to acting really well. So it's more. It would be more difficult to find an English performer who would not be appropriate somewhere in I, Claudius, especially because there's so much variety in the characters of I, Claudius.
Yeah, there's something for literally every so-called type or every approach.
Yeah.
Another reason why English take to acting so much is because, there's national theater there, and government support of virtually all theater.
Yeah.
And in this country, you have to fight and bite and tear and claw to get funding. So,
well, it also helped that, like, right after the war, in order to rebuild their economy, the British government kind of passed some laws that restricted imports of like movies and comic books. So the English had to create their own. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the idea of quota quickies. These were because these laws had said a certain number of films had to be made in England. They would you'd have these small studios, including Hammer, make like these cheap comedies and dramas and everything else. So it was like the way that noir films kind of blew up in the 50s in America. You had a lot of these films show up in England. So like that's how Peter Sellers got his start. He did a lot of these, and then he did like I'm All Right, Jack, and those led to bigger roles. So I think a lot of it is they had to build their industry from scratch. Kind of like the BBC. They started in the 30s, but they kind of suspended during the war. And then once the war ended, they were like, okay, how do we actually do this? Which is why what they realized is, okay, rather than do plays all the time, let's do serials where we can do like so many parts over so many weeks so that we know that there's an end point and we can amortize sets. Okay, what kind of genre do we do? Let's do science fiction. So that's why you get the Quatermass experiment in the late 50s. So yeah, there's this, I think a lot of the way that they kind of treated their media and the way that they kind of had to kind of like grow very quickly. I think that's part of why England is so good with acting.
It also helped them because they were doing so much work. It approximated the stage in terms of the number of productions that were being done, and that allowed writers and actors to sort of find niches and develop, lines of business or their writing skills and whatnot too. So that's another thing that I would love to see in the United States, but you need federal funding for it. You really do. We haven't had that since the Federal Theater Project, really, on that scale. So.
With Orson Welles.
Yes.
Having a lot to do with it.
Yeah. I have a question for you guys. What's your top 3 Orson Welles films?
No, I mean that's you really get about 50% of them in there with just top 3. Citizen Kane and Chimes at Midnight and F is for Fake for me.
For me,
which is a very unique and underappreciated film, actually.
It's a great movie with his hot girlfriend, Oya Kodar. Wow. It's good to be Orson.
I'd
also like to toss the Magnificent Ambersons in there somewhere, too, even though the studio messed around with it, it still came out pretty darn good.
Gordon, what were you going to say? Because it's all true.
Third Man, Lady from Shanghai. I throw in The Stranger, but I'm trying to think of other movies that Orson Welles has been in. Mr. Arcaden. And it doesn't matter which edit because there are 3 of them.
I would say tied for number 1, Third Man and Lady from Shanghai. Both are great films.
They are. As an actor, I thought Touch of Evil was one of his finest performances.
It was good.
It is a good movie, and that's a movie that really gets crapped on by the guys who wrote Ed Wood, and that's one thing I don't appreciate. Where because I like those boys, they're good writers, but they have that wisecrack that Orson Welles makes about that film and saying they want Charlton Heston to play Mexican. Well, Heston's the guy who got him the job, directing the movie.
Sure,
so
Heston respected him, and he always used to like to clear the air about the fact that Welles was not profligate, and he got that reputation from the Hollywood bigwigs because they kind of hated the way that he approached them. Obviously, he used to say no to them too much, and in terms of let us edit it, no, that sort of thing. But in terms of in an interview, Heston was talking about in the 70s, I guess he was talking about people like Spielberg, waste more money than he ever spent on a movie, And he said that Touch of Evil came in, right at budget pretty much, or maybe slightly over budget, but it was not.
Yeah.
And on time. So.
Yeah. Mercedes McCambridge. Yeah, what a performer.
What's you guys' favorite scene from this episode about Claudius here?
I think my favorite scene is the Augustus Claudius conversation.
I'm a softie for that kind of stuff. There's some real emotion in that scene. There's some
not real emotion, but you do get the sense that like Augustus knew all along and was just playing along. Because I think it's when you look at the last episode where Claudius has two similar conversations with one of the historians and Posthumus.
Yeah.
I think with Augustus, Augustus is saying like, yeah, even though he's like, yeah, we'll talk later, and he ends up dying. It's like Augustus is basically saying, hey, you need to look out for yourself. This is not a good situation.
Everybody is sort of telling him that in one way or another throughout these last few episodes. It's like, play more the fool, look out for yourself, watch out. That kind of thing is happening a lot, and of course that's a precursor to what he actually does and how he manages to move through all of this stuff. So
this is the thing about Brian Blessed is that he's so good at roaring, and I'm doing auditions again with some kids, and the one they said, what do you want in auditions, and the one thing I say is, look, I assume you can cry and I assume you can get real mad, so I don't need to see those things. And with Brian Blessed, okay, he can roar. A lot of actors can roar. He can roar.
Yeah.
But it's his moments of sort of wistfulness that are so authentic and so beautiful and so true. Yeah. And that scene that he has with Derek Jacobi in the garden, which I believe is the scene you're talking about.
Yes.
He finds so many gradations just within what we think of as wistfulness. Right. And I know I shouldn't talk about, an emotional outcome and all that, but well, okay, whatever. It's the easiest shorthand I have for that right now. And it's so beautiful. It's such a difficult thing to play and to communicate to actors, that there has to be a line of objective that leads you to that endpoint of appreciation, and he just has it.
And his contrasting quiet moments are very much more powerful because he can contrast them.
Yes.
With this large, broad sort of response that he has.
Yeah, like his death scene where you see it, you can actually tell the point where his face goes, and Livia is just talking and doesn't even realize that he's dead. You don't even see her on camera.
Yeah. To Livia, he's been dead from the moment she started poisoning him. Mm-hmm. I think, her cold-bloodedness is evident in that too. She doesn't really give a shit at that point.
Painting the fruits
at all. Yeah, she does not care at that point. She made up her mind. Once she makes up her mind, that's it. There's a reptilian quality to her.
Oh yeah.
I've known people like her, so I really relish hating her.
This is the thing about Livia.
Not Sean Phillips, but the character of Livia.
We'll talk about this more when we get to her character's end, which is so beautiful. The way Sean Phillips handles all of that. God, this is a good show for death scenes.
Yeah.
And I have to wonder if under different circumstances Livia would have been okay. Was Livia a response to the Roman Empire, or did it just release her? And would it have been this kind of psychotic problem solving in a different schema?
She is sociopathic. There's no doubt about that. She's a sociopath. So there's that element, but how does that, like you say, how does that manifest itself under certain conditions?
I will play devil's advocate for just a moment and say that I think you might be able to offer evidence that she's not as sociopathic. Reason being is the incredible disregard for things like life and pain and so on, and viscera, that the Romans took for granted. Just in terms of their blood sports and everything else. Mm-hmm. She was a sociopath, but I think there were probably a lot like her just because it was a society that
Right.
that had such a different regard. I don't know, Gordon, what do you think? You're the
I think
scholar on this.
I think even given the time, I think she's less a sociopath and more just someone who's ambitious but knows that she's never going to be the one in power. Because she's part of it is, as Patrick said, that the Romans thought of life as short and brutal. The fact that they just go in, Posthumus gets stabbed, let's throw him in the sea. I think Livia, she has her own interests and she's willing to play those interests out. And that's a very Roman thing to do. I don't think she's a sociopath because she's not doing it blindly. I think it's like, okay, I married Augustus at one point for power. My son can be emperor. Augustus is threatening that. So, okay, I've got to do what I got to do to make sure that Augustus doesn't object. And my son becomes emperor. I don't think it's a case of she's not doing it because, okay, I don't care what you do. I do think Livia would. I think Livia wouldn't mind cats. Yeah. But I don't think it's, sociopaths are usually just kind of like, if I got to murder you to get what I want, I'll do it. But I think in this time, what she's being is very practical and very pragmatic. And I think she's not like, I think if you're a sociopath, she'd poison everyone, including Claudius.
Sociopaths aren't always indiscriminate.
Yeah, and I think she's a lot more strategic than it.
Oh.
Joel, what's your favorite scene in this crazy thing?
My favorite scene in this crazy moment is really Sean Phillips talking to Claudius after Augustus has died, and
is that the bye claw? Is that one?
Yeah, I think I mean, it's not hard to see why this woman won an award, for God's sakes. I mean, fuck. What a performance. She does not get it up. I mean, she got a award, don't get me wrong, but what is a water? Thank you.
It's interesting, Joel, to balance out the narrative in Smokey and the Bandit, just as Bo picks up Sally Field, whereupon they have an interesting and prolonged conversation about Stephen Sondheim. Go look it up. It happens in the movie. I think that Sheriff Justice and his son should pick up not just Sean Phillips, but Sean Phillips as Livia and have her around in their car. That would have been good. Imagine her frustration. Her attempts to poison the Diablo sandwich and all the other things.
It would be theater of absurd and theater of cruelty all rolled up into one.
I would love that. You fools! He's getting away.
That's right.
And he's taking the beer with him.
Is there something Sean Phillips was ever considered for, a role that she may not have gotten?
I'm sure many. She's just working actor.
The actor's life.
Yeah, if you want to see her in something else, go see Clash of the Titans. I think she
got
Hera.
more roles than a lot of actors. Let's put it that way. She got
a lot of
roles
TV,
than a lot of actors.
And a lot of stage, stage acting.
And she was married to Peter O'Toole. I think she had bigger worries than not getting roles.
Yeah,
true.
Like trying to get him home and unsodden as much as possible. Yes.
An uphill climb. An uphill climb.
All right, guys. First of all, thank you guys for joining me tonight. I will see you guys Saturday night for the Carrie treatment, 9:45 p.m. Is that one. Tomorrow I have a live stream with Friday the 13th. If you guys are interested, 10:45 p.m. I'm going to talk all about Jason and his mother.
Speaking of sociopathic behavior,
If you say she, I'll say ha ha ha.
That's pretty much it. All right, guys. You guys, link's going to be in the description box. Gordon Demowski's Amazon page, Patrick for Page Dark Code, they book about, and Alan going to YouTube channel, Collins Sport After Dark. You guys have a great night, and thank you.
Good night.
Good night.